Good morning, everyone. It's truly wonderful to be here today, surrounded by some familiar faces and some new ones. Thank you for joining me as we embark on Rhythms of Respect, reimagining routines, rituals, and transitions through Timefulness. I feel privileged to share my professional learning journey, one that has been deeply rooted in adopting a responsiveness to children's needs approach to reimagining how we think and do things differently. First and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge and pay respects to the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. As early childhood educators, we recognise that Aboriginal people have been nurturing and teaching children on this land for many centuries, and we honour and respect that role. So a little bit about the centre where I'm at. So my name is Barba, and I'm honoured to be presenting today as the educational leader at Explore and Develop Lilyfield. For a decade, I have worked at our boutique-sized early learning centre in Sydney's inner west. So we are nestled on Mongol land, and our centre is positioned alongside the City West Link, which is about an 8-lane major road. And it is a major arterial road that on most days feels like a parking lot. Despite being in the midst of Sydney's urban sprawl, our community enjoys unique contrasts from bird watching in our natural surroundings and observing planes overhead in our flight path. We are a small oasis of learning within a concrete jungle where nature and city life intertwine. So a little bit of what we're going to go over today is our why into this whole journey, our professional development that supported us along the journey, responsive routines as a way of organising our day based on the needs of the children, and incorporating yoga and mindfulness to create rituals and soft transitions within our day. So our why. We support 56 children a day across 4 learning environments. We have 2 nursery rooms and 2 preschool rooms. And over the years, we've embraced a philosophy of slowing down, allowing for an unhurried, thoughtful pedagogy. We believe in educating the hands, hearts, and minds of children so they can flourish both now and throughout their lives. This all stemmed from, obviously, after COVID, a lot of things had changed, the children had changed. We were left with a very different centre to what we had before, and I'm sure a lot of you will agree with that one. The children's heightened emotions became highlighted. Children were attending for most of the week, between 9 to 10 hours each day, to meet the family's changing work commitments, which had then a follow-on effect towards their rushing drop-off and pick-up routines. This caused a lot of strain and pressure on our educators that needed a cause for action. The main areas we identified as a team that needed some attention were, we were wanting to add touches of tenderness to our processes and practices. We wanted to elevate our pedagogical knowledge and language that we use with children. We wanted to empower the children and our own image of the child. We wanted to give the educators the permission to slow down. And we also wanted to guide and scaffold educators on being present and attuned to the children, in particular those needs during that time. So our first step was through professional development. So this project was inspired by 2 great leaders in early childhood, Kelly Goodsey and Beth Borowski. They were both share the same approach of embracing children as visionaries for our future, lifting children to be the best versions of themselves with the support of passionate and regulated educators. So with Kelly Goodsey, at the beginning of last year, I participated in a 6-month online course on responsive routines. And that each month we focused on a different practice that surrounded responsive routines, explored what they involved, we reflected on what it could look like in our own personal services, and then we set goals and strategies to work towards this change. So these were about respectful practice, what the role in the environment plays, meal times, sleep, rest and relaxation, grouping children, and then creating a poster project to go along with those practices. And I'm sure a lot of those areas you might find as tricky points in your own services. So we're now going to go on a journey breaking down what these involved, how I implemented them and in our centre, and the impact that it made on not only the children but our educators. Respectful practice. So Kelly Goodsey describes respectful practice as paying attention to where the time is utilized. Unhurried time is seen as highly valued in supporting our ability to tune in, listen, and be responsive to children. We take the time to take the child's lead, to listen and to hear what the children are saying. What does respectful practice mean to me? How does respectful practice look in my service? These were questions that I asked myself. These were questions that needed to be answered beyond myself. What does respectful practice mean for our team? How does our team view respectful practice in our service? This is what we then broke down through our room meetings. And at the heart of this commitment was slow pedagogy, a practice that values time, deep engagement, and the pure joy of discovery. It invites us to pause, observe, and thoughtfully respond rather than rushing through learning. So from the moment we open our doors at 7:30 in the morning to our quiet close at 6 o'clock, slow pedagogy shapes every experience. It's about being present, attuned to children's natural rhythms, and creating space for meaningful learning to unfold. So our agreement towards respectful practice. Respectful practice is versus is not. So to explore this topic further, we brainstormed in each of the rooms what we viewed to be respectful practice and what we didn't view as respectful practice. So some forms of respectful practice that we identified were empowering children, incorporating children's voices in our procedures, curriculum, learning spaces, being present and attuned to the children, and also being flexible within our routines that meets the needs of all our children. I then interviewed some of our preschoolers to see what they viewed as respectful practice. Some of these were, you need to say, stop it, I don't like it. You can't be rude to people. We need to help our friends. We also need to play with our friends. For our younger rooms, we used images of the children's play and interactions to explore their perspective on what their respectful practice looks like in those settings. So introducing our agreement towards respectful practice. So combining the educators and all the children's perspectives, each room created their own agreement towards respectful practice. These agreements are displayed in all our classrooms as a reminder for the educators, but also on display for our families and visitors as an advocacy of children's needs. This isn't a trend, it's a mindset, it's a commitment. It's about honouring children's right to time, curiosity, and connection, and choosing every day to slow down so that children can truly thrive. And the impact of this was profound. Educators were now engaging in robust discussions about their personal beliefs towards respectful practice. This brought on educators questioning their own practices, breaking down barriers that became challenging moments in the room, and taking the time to recognise their own practices and what the classroom needs and the children and what they're telling us and what needs to be changed. In conversation amongst each other, the educators have now been incorporating respectful practice into their daily dialogue and amplifying the quality of our educators' reflections. And as we work with children on becoming aware of themselves and each other, they are given the opportunity to explore respect, not only for themselves, but towards other children. So our next focus was, what does our environment do with respectful practice and our responsive routines? So as we continued to unpack the concept of respect, we discovered the role we as educators play in working with children on this concept. But what about our environment? What role does the environment play towards responsiveness to children? As we take a closer look, we unpacked our transitions and routine. Were these responsive to the children's needs? This introduced the concept of a soft transition. This is a quiet and gentle approach when moving children from one routine, situation, or state to another. Picture your transitions in your own services. What feeling do you get when you think about them? Is it chaotic and stressful, or is it organised and calm? For a child, there are many times in their day where they are interrupted. Arrival and departure to and from the service, having to pack away whilst they're still playing or doing that puzzle, toileting, sleep and rest. These are some of the few interruptions that create their day. How might a soft transition turn these daily routines into a smooth and uninterrupted approach? To answer this question, we reflected on what areas in our practices could be a soft transition. This also explored the concept of a flow of the day and a pause play. So the role of the environment, soft transition. So what are some areas in your practice that could be a soft transition? Together we determined, using verbal and non-verbal cues during transitions, we thought that this could be through visual cards, visual timers, routine charts. Our children like to use the digital timers on YouTube where they can see the visual of their time. Giving extra time or reminders prior to a transition occurring. Moving between spaces in small groups rather than the whole class at once. Walking up to individual or small groups of children, inviting them to enter or transition to another task rather than making loud announcements across the whole class. Not forcing all children to join group time. We have a few children with additional needs that find group time challenging. These children can have the option of helping an educator or playing in a different space whilst that group time is occurring. Setting up meal times and allowing the children to slowly enter as they see the table ready, rather than again making the large group announcements. Our impact on this, so after brainstorming these ideas, it was time to then put them into practice. So after a few months of quiet invitations, visual cues, and overall responsiveness to children, we saw significant impact. Our educators are now quietly approaching children one-on-one and in small groups to join meal times, rather than making those big loud announcements. This has created a calmer and quieter transition across our whole service, and just the environment in general has been a lot calmer. Educators are now conscious of the language, volume, and atmosphere during transitions, as well as keeping in mind our children with sensory processing that can become overwhelmed by transitions. Educators think ahead of time to have planned and organised transitions. This means ensuring that the next task and educators are organised to then be able to be present and regulated in themselves for the children to access this space. And children are generally happier, settled, and relaxed. And our flow of the day was the next part of our role of the environment. So the next step to ensure a soft transition was having a visual flow of the day on the display in every single classroom, from our nursery room all the way up to our preschools. Our flow of the day is different from a routine chart, as the keyword flow is what makes it different. This has no timestamps, allowing routines to flow based on children's cues rather than by a clock. Something to think about. Do we pack away at exactly 10:30 a.m. every day? Or do we analyse children's cues in play to become flexible in pushing our group time back a little bit? Have the children just had a breakthrough by finding that missing section of the puzzle, but now it's time to pack away? Or do we allow that group to keep working on their puzzle while the rest of the class can pack away around them? How are your routines maximised to ensure they are responsive to children's needs? Not only does our flow of the day have no timestamps, but they are photos from our real life routines. You will see photos of their meal tables, photos of beds, and the different learning environments. This allows predictability and an understanding for the children about what is happening next. During our day, which you'll see in the photos, we will have children spontaneously visiting our flow of the day, discussing with their peers, and funnily enough, the photo of the house, they will fight about whose house it is. So it creates a bit of humour as well. And the impact of this has a tremendous, for many different reasons. So children independently approach this throughout their day, building on their agency. When the children are upset because they are wanting their parents, particularly during that morning drop-off routine where that separation can be a bit challenging, the flow of the day is a great tool to explain to children what steps are occurring before their parents arrive. This also teaches them sequencing patterns, but determining the different events that are also occurring in their day. As I mentioned earlier, we have a few children in our preschool and junior preschool class that are neurodiverse. This chart allows them to see in visual form what is occurring in their day, as well as building their ability to self-regulate. Similar to this, we've had several children in our preschool room across the week that attend our service part-time, but also the local preschool for the remainder of the week. This has created a number of challenges for our children and educators in our space. One focal challenge has been children finding it hard to follow daily expectations or tasks due to being over multiple settings. Some of these children also attend after-school care on top of their preschool. So it's then creating another setting. So that's 3 settings in 1 week that they need to wrap their head around what expectations, what routines are happening in their day. So this flow of the day provides the children the security and understanding what their day looks like whilst they are in our setting. These are some photos, of our pause play cards. So part of the role environment was then them being able to access their environment independently. So last year, we introduced the concept of a pause card to support children's transitions in their day in their preschool and junior preschool rooms. So each child has their own card with a photo of them that is propped up by a little wooden card holder, which you'll see here. To use these cards, the children place them beside a toy they are using or on a chair to mind their spot while they use the bathroom, participate in a mealtime, or step out to go and do something else. This pause play card enables children to have the agency and responsibility to support themselves during transition times. Minding these spots or resources enables children to come back to what they were doing, extending on their learning and innovation. These have been in many of our areas for our play. So for example, you'll see here we created a large 4 puzzle. The children ended up spending an entire day with me as we progressively worked towards completing the puzzle. This went from before lunch to during rest time to finally finishing it at the end of the day. During this progression, we saw different children coming and going, adding their little part to the puzzle. During our transition times and packing away, the children placed their pause play card on the puzzle, reserving it for later in the day. By the time we finished the puzzle, we ended up having about 7 children's cards that had contributed. This experience started with just myself and 2 other children. Taking a step back and admiring their efforts, their pause play cards served as a signature on a painting to an artist. They became the artists of their own work. As we continued to work progressively, the children participated in a loose parts art experience, which is those 2 bottom ones, with natural materials and a white sheet as a canvas. The children created an ephemeral art piece which involves the children slowly adding different materials, creating a large artwork as their end piece. Throughout the day, the children slowly kept adding different materials to the piece. With new children also entering the classroom during different parts of the day, they were also adding their own ideas. The children then added their pause play cards to their parts of the canvas, becoming proud to showcase their work, which you can see some examples here. So the impacts on these pause plays have created many benefits for our children across all different domains. Before commencing this idea about using pause play cards, I asked our preschoolers what they thought of this idea. They said, sometimes when I am building, I don't want to leave what I'm building, but I need to go to the toilet, said one of our preschoolers, which we were finding when we were having those toileting accidents, which I'm sure a lot of you understand, it's them not wanting to leave their play. So that created a great tool to support their toileting. When we think about rituals and our connection with children, part of this was also encouraging the families to slow down and build a connection with their children. So due to our family's busy work schedules, we noticed that the children's morning and their pick-up routines at night as well are very rushed, which has created, sadly, some anxious children. Supporting children to develop strategies to slow down, we also made the pause play cards as a sign-in ritual during their morning routine. As the children arrive with their families, they find their photo in the basket and place it into the card holder, ready for use during the day. As the children placed their pause cards on their work that they progressively completed, They are given the opportunity to extend on their creativity, innovation, and persistence. Revisiting their work brings on new ideas as well as the ability to overcome challenges. As children are on their journey to toilet training, there is a common challenge of children having toileting accents, like I just mentioned. Having these pause cards allows them that agency to mind their spot or what resource they're using to then use the bathroom and then re-enter their play. Our next stop was meal times. Previously, when we would think of meal times, we viewed them as busy periods that were just a routine before rest time. We thought, how can we make meal times part of our rhythm of respect? This brought us to our reflection on time. How did we view time? How much time do we disperse across all our practices in the day? Did we spend more time on assessment and documentation and less time on building and nurturing relationships with children? Upon this reflection, we came across an article called Finding Time, the Rhythm of Our Routines. The QR code on the screen will bring you to that article. In the article, it explores our approach towards time. How can we build a relationship with time rather than it working against us? To build a relationship with time, the article breaks it into 4 values: relationships and connections, listening and documentation, considering children's theories and ideas, and dialogue and interpretation of documentation and other important data with colleagues. In room meetings across our classrooms, we read through the article, exploring this concept in detail. Using the pie graph, which you'll see in the bottom corner, the educators then categorised how much time they felt they personally spent in each of the 4 values. This was a great experiment on both ends. As an educational leader, it was a great way for me to see where the educators place themselves and what they feel their strengths are. And for the educators, it was a great way to see in visual form where they sat. And upon completion, a lot of the educators expressed that what they recorded is not what they wanted to be. And we saw most educators spending most of the time on listening and documentation and the least amount of time on relationships and connections. In our role as early childhood educators and teachers, it is so easy to fall in the trap of regulations, documentation, procedures, but what matters most is the children. If they are spending most of their time with us and very little time at home with their families, when are they getting the opportunity to build on relationships and connections? Are these honouring rhythms of respect? To flip this, we reflected on ways we can build a relationship with time. Our first step was meal times. How can we use this as a time to build relationships and connections? Introducing our lunchtime wanderings and commitment to meal times. Our Lunchtime Wanderings book is a book that sits by our meal tables and has recordings of all the children's wanderings made about the world around them during lunchtimes. These discussions can be from how does magic work all the way to is tomato a fruit or a vegetable? As the children form these queries, the educator sitting with the group of children records these stories as well as children's voices. This book is more than just a concrete book that sits on display in our meal area. It is a tool to develop slow pedagogy, to encourage presence, and most importantly, to create a rhythm of respect. Honouring our meal times and our commitment to time, the children, educators, and our service philosophy have come together to form our commitment to meal times, which is on the side there, and that is that poster project. So each part will have its own poster. Honouring our meal times and commitment to time, the children, so this commitment is also by our meal tables as a reminder to our educators, children and visitors about what we honour during a shared meal together. Creating our commitment to meal times, we're inspired by the work of Memory Leon and Tony Christie. In this book, in their book Rituals, they talk about mealtime rituals as the perfect opportunity to bring love and care to our relationships, learn about the goodness of food, and the opportunity for children to discover their culinary likes and dislikes. Branching off these ideas from Memory Leon and Tony Christie, our educators collaborated to discuss what this can look like in our setting, and this is what they explore. Educators will engage in healthy discussions with children during meal times. We will work in partnerships with families who have special meal requirements for their child. Daily routines, including meal times, are enhanced to become welcoming practices that support and nurture understanding, empathy, and kindness. And as we continue to honour rhythms of respect, it was only fair that we also consulted with the children to find out what they liked about our meal times. I like it when we have garlic bread for lunch, said Remy. I like to eat together, said Emerson. I like milk when it's morning tea time, suggested Maggie. I like to eat my lunch with Maggie, shared Rosie. Connecting these perspectives forms a forefront of our commitment to mealtimes, valuing a slow and present approach, something that is honoured and valued during our mealtimes each day that also creates a lasting impact. And the children flourish in this unhurried environment. They engage deeply, build confidence, and develop a natural love for learning. Educators feel the shift to a slower, more responsive rhythm that honours their well-being, allowing them to be more present, attuned, and fulfilled in their teaching. This is our slow pedagogy, and this is what it means to learn, grow, and connect at the right place. So sleep, rest, and relaxation. As we continue to adopt a rhythm of respect, and more importantly, to lift up our routines, rituals, and transitions, we then reflected on sleep and rest time. Our challenge at the time was that we were having an increasing number of children in our preschool and junior preschool room that had stopped their midday nap. And due to our children also spending a long day with us, it was still important that they still had that rest period. And the challenges that we were experiencing during this time was that we still had a quarter to half of the class that still wanted to sleep. So we needed to also make sure that we were being respectful towards the children's rights for a quiet rest place. So the other challenge that we were also facing was what resources and experiences could we set up that still encourages the children to rest but not be restricted to a bed. So to think creatively, we turned to each other. What do we do as adults in our own sleep and rest needs? In a staff room reflection, this was what we shared. Reading a book under a big blanket, Pilates, having quiet time, reading comic books on my bed, connecting to nature, sitting quietly and listening to quiet and calming music, doing crochet or weaving, playing games or going for a walk, playing the piano. After gathering these ideas from our educators, we then approached the children, asking them what they liked about rest time. I like it so much because you get energy. I like rest time because I get to play, but not too loudly. When the people are sleeping in the transition room, which is another little space, the people that are awake in the classroom might scream and wake up the children that are sleeping, so we need to be quiet. We play puzzles at rest time. We could have a little play before rest time, and maybe the people that sleep could play with their snuggle toy. Gathering the children's and educators' perspectives, we then created various rest time strategies. The children that still require sleep use the classroom with calming music and dim lighting, and the children that are awake doing quiet activities in our transition space still do have the dimmed lighting and relaxing music on, but this space is also, it's in our indoor and outdoor environment, and it is separated from the classroom, which gives them that little bit of barrier. So you'll see some of the experiences that the children participate that don't sleep during their rest time. So in this space, the children participate in various rest time activities. These are listening to audio stories with headphones. So with an adapter, we're able to connect 5 headphones to the one device, allowing multiple children to share a story together. Some of the children like to draw at the same time when starting a drawing experience. The children will listen to relaxing music through the headphones whilst they're drawing. We have a maker station, which is the middle photo up the top. This is where the children use recycled boxes and materials to cut and stick different pieces together to build their own creations. We have bingo, all types of bingo, secret or bingo, dinosaur bingo, anything you can imagine. This also encourages the children. They then created their own bingo cards based on whatever theme that they liked. Some like to share a book or read together, and of course there's also those ones that just love to draw, which we always have on offer. Organising and supporting children through their rest period, the educators are responsive to different children's needs, and you will notice the different experiences planned cater to all different interests, and this is to ensure that all children are able to participate in rest time to regulate their own bodies. So our commitment to sleep and rest. As we continue to explore our rest and sleep practices and all our practices in general, we find that strategies can work and then over time new challenges appear. As part of our reflective practice, it is important that we continue to make these improvements. When we're working on improving our rest time practices, there were obviously barriers that were faced along the way. These were families wanting to cap or drop sleep times, which I'm sure we all hear every day. Staff lunch breaks interfering with rest times, which is also another challenge I'm sure a lot of people face. Children not wanting to sleep, but recognizing that their body actually needed one. They were showing the signs that they still needed their sleep. And then these are just some to name a few. With these barriers in mind, as well as the educators' own practices, we then came to our own rest, as well as what the children liked about rest time, as well as incorporating our professional development with the Karma class, as well as different resources we purchased for rest time. We created our rest time to sleep and rest. So creating our commitment to sleep and rest, we continue to become inspired by the work of Memory Leon and Tony Christie. Creating peaceful sanctuary spaces and being attuned and responsive to children's sleep and rest needs will create a harmony in a group setting. Continuing our exploration of our commitment to sleep and rest, we turn to our philosophy and policy and procedures. In our service philosophy, we highlight the importance of valuing children's mental health and emotional resilience, guiding children to develop a growth mindset through yoga, mindfulness, and holistic rituals. In our service philosophy and policy and procedure, we ensure that all children have access to calm and quiet areas throughout the day. Educators and staff will create a relaxing atmosphere for resting children by playing relaxing music, reading stories, turning off lights, and ensuring children are comfortably clothed. Educators and staff will ensure that children who do not wish to sleep are provided with alternative activities and experiences, while those who wish to sleep are also to do so without being disrupted. Combining the words of Memory Leon and Tony Christie, our service philosophy, policy and procedures, as well as our children's voices, we have our commitment to sleep and rest. This is what we honour during our sleep and rest periods, and something that we strongly advocate for when discussing sleep and rest with our families and visitors. The next part of this whole journey was obviously through Karma class, yoga and mindfulness. So creating a rhythm of respect was our approach towards children, but also how we teach children to also honour this rhythm. This rhythm of respect was in themselves, learning to take care of their body and mind through yoga and mindfulness. This journey started with a professional development day for our entire team with Beth from the Karma class back in March of 2023, and our why. So working again in a post-COVID landscape introduced different children to what we experienced before. Our children's emotional resilience decreased significantly, families' work schedules became busier, and working from home introduced parents not switching off from work. These had lasting impacts on children's behaviours, social skills, and overall emotional resilience. After research, we found that children need to participate in physical activity every day to regulate their emotions. Collecting different strategies to respond to children and their challenging emotions, to create spaces and practices that support children's mental health, and to teach children how to slow down and become present in themselves. In this professional development, we dove into peace pauses, yoga poses, mindful moments, and creating calming spaces and transitions. Towards the end of last year, I was then reflecting because I felt like our yoga and mindfulness wasn't as much of a standout in our curriculum, and that the educators weren't as confident in implementing these strategies as they were back in 2023. When I did further reflecting about why this was occurring, I realised that since our last training in 2023, we had quite a bit of movement with additional staff joining our team. I realised that about half of our staff hadn't completed this training. And this is when I decided to bring Beth back in March this year to redo the training for all of our educators. So the basis of the Karma class is using different cards. So using the Karma class, we follow a box of set of cards provided that focuses on different body parts and the mind. Each card is categorized into the following exercises. Let's breathe, which are different breathing techniques that are both calming and ones that are invigorating. Stress busters, so shake things up and relieve tension through self-love. Partner poses, these are yoga poses that are done with a partner. At the desk, these are yoga poses that are done when sitting on a chair. This is more catered towards the primary school and high school age children. Feeling strong, these are yoga poses that encourage stretching, lengthening, opening, twisting, bending, balancing to mindful breathing. Calm as citizen, these are discussion points to encourage children to become the best versions of themselves, to cultivate compassion and kindness for each other. Mindful moments, which are fun activities to cultivate mindfulness and encourage an inner self-calm. Dustbuster, so these are at the desk and the feeling strong movements that have been put together into a sequence for you so that when you are doing yoga, you don't need to create all those poses in a sequence yourself. It's already done. And the last one is imagination vacation. So that's a series of guided visualizations to bring children to the present moment and help them to better understand their feelings. So the first step were peace pauses. So a peace pause is a spontaneous or planned moment in the day when you or the children or the classroom environment need a reset. So this is through breathing exercises, stress busters, or yoga. These practices might be before commencing a transition period, reflecting on your own transition times. Are they seamless, relaxed, and organized? Do all the children know where they need to be? Implementing a peace pause before this transition allows the children to be fully present and regulated to then understand what your instruction is. And then at the start or end of the day is another great time for the children to participate in a peace pause. So children that are upset during drop-off, have come in from a busy weekend or feeling overwhelmed by all the different families coming in and out for drop-off can all value from a simple peace pause. So at the end of the day, children are tired, they may have had a challenging day or just wanting to be at home. A peace pause is a great way to reset the rhythmic body pattern, preparing them for their end of day routine. So pick up, bath, bed, all of that. Overall challenging behaviours or children that are distracted find value in a peace pause when they are able to regulate their body to then communicate to their peers or educators about what they want or need. Another invaluable time, which I think we can all relate to, is when you're just having one of those days with the children. Emotions are high, educators are stressed, and to top it off, Jimmy has just bitten one of his friends. No matter what you do, you just feel like you can't win. A peace pause is a great reset to bring the children together, regulate as a class, and just move past the peace pause, move past the chaos, sorry. So briefly mentioning above, peace pauses have tremendous benefits for children and educators. We firstly noticed that it created a calming environment within our service, and by producing such environments, it then allows the children to be regulated, feel safe, and also the educators feeling organised and present in themselves. Regularly participating in these breathing exercises, the children were then able to independently incorporate these into their day when feeling overwhelmed or dysregulated. This also translated to our educators when they felt like they were equipped with the tools to properly support children's emotional regulation. In particular, our junior staff were also feeling like they were confident enough to support these children. And part of our training with the Karma class was also about co-regulation, which means for a child to regulate, you need to feel regulated in yourself. Children absorb the emotions of everyone around them, and educators need to be settled in themselves to be present and supportive of the children with emotional regulation challenges. Yoga poses. So our journey with the Karma class extended towards incorporating yoga into the children's day. These yoga poses involve the children working different parts of the body, learning how they can move, stretch, and flex their body into different positions. Bringing yoga into our classes, I had a lot of reluctance from the educators A lot of them were saying they can't do yoga, or they don't know what to do, or my back can't do yoga. Using the cards as an extension from our professional development, these educators actually grew to love it, and walking out of that PD session, their whole mind frame had switched. One thing that I took from our PD session was we're not teaching children how to do yoga and ensure that their body and their foot and their leg is all positioned in the exact correct way, but it's more about teaching the children to be aware of their body, to use it as a form of regulation. So the benefits of doing yoga are that it eases anxiety and tension, it produces a calm and overactive mind and body, it boosts energy, and it forms a connection between the body and mind. And these benefits are exactly what we observed our children in our centre today need, which is why this is a daily practice within our curriculum across every single classroom from our nursery to our preschool room. Implementing yoga, we found numerous impacts on the children. So they were going home and showing their families how to do yoga at home, bringing families along our mindfulness journey, and again, building that connection with their families. In play, the children were running their own yoga classes. It also had become a pre-lunchtime ritual for all classrooms, allows the children to slow their bodies and mind down, to then take their time during meal times, to then be regulated and ready for their rest time following. And having yoga at this time of the day also brought on that predictability within the routine. The children knew we're going to do yoga and next is lunch and then rest time. And the current research also found that children were not getting enough physical activity within their day. So as we implement yoga as an everyday ritual, the children are working towards moving their body in different ways to then regulate themselves. So in the book Slow Knowledge and the Unharried Child by Alison Clark, we're inspired from the following quote about accelerating childhood. Regardless of how successful we live, work and busy ourselves this year, collectively, next year, we will always work that little bit faster, more efficient, more innovative, better. But if we want to maintain our peace in the world, then the year after that, the bar will be set even higher. So we're always reaching for that end goal, but we're always each year working harder and harder and faster to get to where we want to be. So in long term, that has an impact on our children. So they're living in a world which everything is fast-paced, competitive, trying to keep up with everything around them. Their weekends are spent on the go, and their weeknights are fast-paced from pick-up to bedtime. How can we reverse this idea of an accelerated childhood? What can we do to allow children to just be? Introducing mindful moments. These are rituals in the day where the children purposely plan moments, where educators plan moments that encourage the children to be present, reflect, and connect with themselves and each other. A bit like our peace pauses, these are moments in the children's day when they are supported to slow down and be present. Candle time is a special moment in our classrooms, in particular our preschool room, with candles lit in the middle of our circle and relaxing music on in the background. The children are given a reflective question to share about themselves. What are you grateful for? What is something that made you happy today? How do you feel when someone does something kind for you? These are just some examples of our reflective questions. Candle gazing, which was a ritual that started in our 14 to 20-month-year-old room, which the flicker of a flame, so slow, so tranquil, can do wonders for the busy mind. These children enjoy laying on their stomach with relaxing music in the background, just watching the candles slowly flicker. Meditation, a space to dive into their imagination, all whilst connecting to their body and mind. Using audio-guided meditation books, the children listen to different creative pieces that support them to focus on one concept whilst expanding their imagination. Mindful painting, which I personally enjoy the most, a time for children to use painting as a form of relaxation. With calming music in the background, a visual prop for inspiration, whether it be in artwork or nature, the children paint their own paintings, learning to take their time and pay attention to the finer details. In these small group experiences, the children are all given their own paint palette, water jar, brush and drying towel to use, further encouraging them to be connected to oneself, We find that even our busiest of children soak up this precious time of slow. Sensory play, so either through Play-Doh, clay, water, foam, are many resources that the children interact with, aiding their sensory seeking behaviours. In particular, Play-Doh is we infuse it with essential oils to deepen the sensory experience. So if it's a crazy day, we use lavender. If there's lots of colds around, we use eucalyptus. This is on offer every morning as an arrival ritual, supporting our children to find drop-offs overwhelming. So we find that those particular children thrive when each morning, they just do the exact same thing. They say goodbye to mum or dad, they wave goodbye, they go do Play-Doh. That predictability gives them that support during drop-off. Our mindful moments have created a great impact on our children and overall classroom environment. They allow children the time to slow down and be present in themselves. It creates a regulated self to then be ready to learn. Having these mindful moments as rituals also, again, allows predictability. And our preschool room, that again has that range of diverse additional needs, allows these children to feel settled, comfortable and calm within their learning space, which then limits social conflicts and emotional outbursts. Calming spaces and transitions, which this is our last focus on our rhythms of respect. A key takeout from our training with the Karma class was to have spaces prepared and organised for how you want the children to feel when they are in that space. Do you want a tranquil and settled environment? What do you need to do to your space to allow for this? Thinking back to the concept of soft transitions, we've transformed how we move children between spaces. Continuing with our small grouping, we introduced hand castanets, which you'll see just down the bottom, to make announcements rather than a loud voice across the room. During meal times, to encourage the children to take their time, we added candles, relaxing music, greenery to an overall home-like setting. This transforms meal times from what is a routine to a ritual, a time for building connections, slowing down and being present. Thinking about when you are preparing for your own learning experiences. Are your resources and learning spaces prepared so that you are fully present with the children? Or are you having to quickly duck out to get something? Or are you present, or are you trying to just catch up? Creating these calming spaces and transitions had lasting impacts on our children and overall classroom environment. The children with auditory processing had found transitions less stressful, resulting in them being able to confidently and positively participate in these resource transitions. Our fussy eaters are now beginning to enjoy food on offer as the environment supports a slow and warming approach. Educators are finding our transitions less stressful as they've been more organised, slow and responsive to all the children's needs. And the children are able to enter learning spaces with clear expectations and understandings of what they're about to be doing. Thinking about your own routines, rituals and transitions, where does Timefulness sit in this? What is your team's agreement towards respectful practice? What areas in your practice might be a soft transition? How can you incorporate mindful moments into your day? Thank you.